Hello. How's everybody doing out there? I think we're live. I didn't get a count in, but I don't know. Maybe Rich dropped or something like that. Hopefully everybody's there. I think we are live. I see it. And we're going with the Dev Talk Show on a Wednesday night. Here we are, gang, back for another fun show. And if you're looking at us live, you'll see three faces up here, and one of them may not look familiar to you. But Chris is not with us tonight. We've got special guest Mahesh Chand with us tonight, and we're really psyched to have him with us. Hello, Mahesh. How are you?
Good. Thank you, Andy and Rich, having me on the show. Thank you so much.
Yeah, it's great to have you. So if you know fans of the show will notice that Chris isn't here. I will do my best to try to entertain and ask engaging questions and do all that stuff. And hopefully Rich is going to jump in. Rich, of course, is always really busy with the producing and stuff like that. But how you doing, Rich?
Doing all right, Andy. Feels like it's been a while. Things going well with you? Great show
Things
this afternoon.
Pretty good. I got a haircut, and I'm really psyched because it had been like 6 weeks, you know. And when you have hair like us, 6 weeks makes a big difference, right? With this little normal buzz, and I'm feeling like rejuvenated with a haircut.
You didn't notice. I ended up going under the blades myself.
I did notice. I couldn't tell if it was the lighting, but your hair looks really short.
Yeah, that's where it should be. It was like 8
Yeah.
weeks of growth. So.
Right, me too. It was making me crazy. So, let's bring in again with a formal introduction our friend Mahesh, who I've known for years through our developer community. Mahesh is an award-winning software architect, author, and international speaker and innovator. He's got 22 years of experience in the software industry. He's done startups. He's got his own company. He's the CEO of Mindcracker. He's helped many companies get started and working with different groups and helping out. But he's probably most known as the founder of C# Corner, which is, to me, one of those iconic websites in the .NET development space, right? And talking about when you're, Googling something and looking for help, or you're looking for an article on something, C# Corner has been there as long as I can remember, and it's awesome. So anyway, Mahesh, welcome to the show.
Thank you, and everybody. I'm excited to be here.
Well, we're glad to have you. Hey, Richard Wysocki's here. How are you, Richard? Nice to see you here. Thanks for saying hi there. Real quick, I'm curious, how long has C# Corner been around? We're going to get into talking about other stuff, but how long has C# Corner been around?
Well, I created and I got the domain actually in December 1999, and website was formally launched actually in sometime I would say July 2000, and that's when Microsoft announced it's a C# beta. Actually, it was alpha and beta. That's when I really launched C# Corner. So yeah, a little funny story. I had a website called Mindcracker, and that was basically a learning and sharing for C++. But when Microsoft announced C#, I created a little corner on Mindcracker, and that's the name came from C# Corner.
I always wondered where the name came from. That's a good story.
It was supposed to be a little corner on Mindcracker.
Just a little part of it. And now it basically takes over the world. And not only do you have this popular site with articles and questions and all kinds of stuff, but in addition, you guys run conferences and you have chapters all over the world, and it's really just a whole big enterprise, isn't it?
Yeah, so it grew itself. Obviously, initially, a couple of years, I did it simply right what I learned in my daily life at that time. I don't know if you remember, in year 2000, 2001, 2002, I was writing programming books on .NET. I wrote my first book in 2001 with A-Press. At that time, there was not much documentation. So all you have to do is figure it out. So there was, you have to go to libraries sometimes, figure out, and then it takes so much time to you figuring things out. I said, you know what, anything I'm learning, I would rather put it up there so anybody else wants to do same thing. They don't have to go through these hoops and bounces, and they can just read that. And that's really how it started. And today,
Yeah, that's
as you said, we have chapters and people, just developers from all over the world. They just contribute, they learn and share, and it's just pretty much self-sustaining community now.
I can't imagine anyone that has been doing this for a while that isn't familiar with C Sharp Corner. I mean, I can say, and I'm sure I've told you this in the past. Thank you, because I can't even imagine over the years how many articles I've read there. And like you said, you've been doing this. You started this stuff a long time ago. So it's interesting because this thing that we're doing here, this live stream, we're talking to people and we're streaming, and it's something of a visual podcast, right? And we had Carl Franklin on the show. I guess, what was that, Rich? A month ago? I don't even know. I lost track of time now.
Gosh, that was back in February. That was one of the last live ones we did with the user group, right?
That was a while. Yeah. So think about that. He was like like sort of, not that he's old enough to be this, but like the grandfather of .NET podcasting. Yeah. And Mahesh, you're sort of like that also. You're like you guys are like founders of these types of communities within our .NET space, and it's really something special. It's really cool. So, but that's not what we're here to talk about today, right? We're here to talk about developer, how did we phrase it? I guess we're saying like paths to success and growth, right? Developers. So why is that? That's something, you sort of pitched, like, let's talk about that. Why is it that was something that mattered to you?
Yeah, and when you say success and path to growth for software developers, is all it really means is how do you get to the next stage, right? Like if I'm I'm starting as a junior developer, how do I go to become a developer or senior developer? If I'm a senior developer, I'm working for 10 years doing all the programming, how do I go to next level? How do I become a lead developer, or how do I become an architect? And what are those steps? What are those things you can do? And the reason I bring this to, I brought this to you is because I've been a programmer. I started as a coder, my master's degree in computer programming. So I went through all these stages, and I realized, what, as a software developer, how many times, we do a lot of work and we don't even get credit for it. The guys who are in front of the cameras or in front of media or in front of their, marketing guys, sales guys, VP of this, they get all the credit. So it pisses me off that I'm the one who's building a product and credit goes to somebody else. Same thing with that. Somebody else making more money than, the real guy who's building a product. How many times it happens, right? So it always kind of, I'm like, we got to do something about it. And that's where rather than me sharing coding, how to do coding, because a lot of people are doing coding, everybody's sharing it. I want to, bring these developers into, like, think about yourself, think about your growth, think about your family and your kids and all that. And it's more than just like, hey, this is my cool code I want to share with you, right? What do you need to get to the next stage? And it could be different for everybody, right? Somebody say, you know what, I'm happy in my life writing code. All I need to maybe I need is better salary. Or somebody say, you know what, I'm happy in my company. All I need is more exposure, or maybe become a speaker. So depends on each individual. Depends on. So that's what we want to talk about. How do you get to the next stage?
Yeah, and I was thinking about this a little bit. One of the things you were sort of defining, what is success, right? Because success might mean something different to everybody. I was thinking that, for some people, and in some points in my career, I was happy, salary wise. I mean, sure, we all want more salary, but there's been times where I've been comfortable, and I've talked to developers who are comfortable. But one of the things that they feel is missing from their definition of success is they're just not working on the kind of projects they want to work on, right? That's another sort of successful measure. Do we want to work on the same old stuff, or do we want to be working on new stuff?
Right.
But But you were, so we were talking about, you mentioned, being a junior and then going on to be, let's say, a mid-level or a senior. We all have different terms for these. And we've always talked about, on this show, we've talked about before, if I'm not mistaken, that it's very hard to know, like, what is a junior, what is a senior, right? And that's always been something that can be a little elusive, as like a definitive guide to that. Do you have any like, sort of framework that you tend to say, like, here's what a junior should know, here's what a senior should know?
Yeah, and again, every company has different parameters, right? But for me, when I see a developer, he just has less than 3 years experience, I would call it, or maybe 2 years experience, I would call it junior developer.
I
And
agree.
from, I would say 2 to 5, like you are okay, you are now, developer, software engineer, can call it programmer, depends on how you want to phrase it. And then, if you're 5 plus, 6 plus, 7, 8, you start becoming like a senior developer.
Mm.
Um, and 8 plus is I see, even though they may call themselves developer, but I see them as a lead, because after 8 years, you kind of start leading a team, or at least few developers, right? If you're
Hmm.
leading a team, even though your title is not lead, you kind of lead, because you
Oh, I
should
agree.
be you should be helping other young guys.
Yes.
Definitely.
You don't have to have the title of lead to, this is one of
Hmm.
the things I try to say a lot. You don't have to have the title of a lead to be a leader, right?
Correct.
Yeah. So, so, um, so what? I guess I'm trying to think of where we want to take this conversation. There's so many places we could go, but maybe we want to talk about like what are some ways that junior developers can move up? Let me ask you this: what's an audience you hear from a lot? Do you tend to hear from juniors trying to move to mid, or mid trying to move to senior, or senior, or is it across the board?
Yeah. Well, what I hear, the biggest question I hear from developers is that I'm not happy with my company. I'm not
Ah.
happy with my boss.
Hmm.
And and then when I ask why are you not happy, there's usually two reasons. Either they don't have the work they like.
Hmm.
Okay, that's the biggest reason I see. If you are a developer who are in a good company getting good salary, their biggest question to me whenever I talk to them is like they are bored with, like they are working on the same project or same kind of projects for a long time. Um, and then second thing, obviously, I hear is that how you know they get out, beside the salary part. This is, salaries for everybody, right? Everybody wants more salary, more money. So then I hear is like, I want to do more with life. I don't feel like working in a corporate. I don't like the politics. I want to do my own, or I want to get in a company where I can get more involved in a startup kind of innovation, some projects where I can do cool stuff. So those are the two major, whenever I talk to developers, that's their biggest concern. So it seems to me like they're not happy or content with kind of the work. And sometimes they feel like they're not growing, like growth, right? When I said growth, they feel like they're stuck in this timeline where they've been doing the same coding for, 5, 6, whatever years.
Yeah, that kind of matches a lot what I say. Now we did have a comment. I just want to point out,
Yeah.
um, Richard Wysocki is saying, it's also good to measure things. I think what he's saying is, not just years of development, but also you got to measure like leadership skills in that mix as well, right? And I'm sure you would agree that some people have
Def-
more skills than others.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, if you are, 10 plus years experience or 8 plus, you need to start thinking as a leader, right? If you want to grow in your, professional life. Even
Hmm.
professional, even his personal life, you start taking some leadership role, and leadership comes with responsibilities and also some sacrifices. That's simple. We can't be just like, hey, I like to do cool things, and I will only do this way I want to do, right? There's a lot of developers out there, which I also
Hmm.
talk like, you know what? Don't bug me. I'm here sitting. Let me do my coding. But that's great. But then you don't expect that to be, get to the next level, because there's more than coding involved there.
Right, right.
Yeah.
Um, so, um, so, so I agree with what you were saying before. Like this is the circumstance I hear a lot too. is that people are saying they want to change. They're not happy with their job for things. So where do you start with that in advice? So someone says, hey, Mahesh, I'm really not happy with my job. I've been there a couple of years, but it just not getting the experience I want. What would you say to them?
Well, you know how depending on the company, right? Every company has somebody is doing something interesting, somebody is doing something new. You probably need to find out that person or that group or that sometimes it could be innovation department in a company, right? If you are working in a big corporation, they definitely have R&D or innovation part where all they do is cool stuff,
Mm-hmm.
experimenting and all that. If you are in a smaller company, and I work with the smaller companies, right? And I know exactly how it can be. If you smaller company, say you're a very small company, but you can direct interact with the owner of the company or with the vice president of the company, director.
Right.
You can bring your ideas to them. You can say, hey, we are doing this for so long, but these are some new ideas. These are some innovative ways we can help not only our customers, but we can save time. We can be more productive, right? We can also move ahead of our competition. So this is how you have to. So as a business owner, they need to see that if they want to bring some new, innovation idea, or you want to spend some money or time or resources on new idea or new projects, what's involved in that and how business will benefit from that. So as long as you can think from their side, sometimes as a developer, you'll go to a boss or business owner and say, we want to, we need to do this. We need to do this. But you need to kind of think from their side. You have to kind of explain them that why you need to do that. And once you
Yeah.
have that, yeah, chances are you will probably end up being in that group.
So it sounds like what you're saying is that sometimes you have to make an opportunity for yourself, right? You can't just wait for people to come find you sitting in your corner in your cube and thinking, "Hey, I wonder if that woman who sits down this aisle or that man who sits on that aisle, oh my gosh, maybe they're just a great developer and I just haven't. So I'm going to go ask them if they're great, right?" What you're saying is go find the place where the innovation is happening, talk to people, and make an opportunity, right?
Well,
Correct. Yes.
yeah, and that's,
Yeah.
I guess, kind of thinking back. I mean, on your own careers, right? I mean, I know on mine there was a turning point on I've had a couple turning points in my career with the various background I've had, but there's a turning point in my career on the development side where there was the right opportunity when I was in that junior role, and I asked for the chance to go and work on this project because they were looking for somebody. They knew they had nobody on the bench, and because I kind of moved to the business side of a technology, they never thought of me as the person who could take on that role. But opportunity and the chance to step up as a junior developer and say, yeah, I can do that, and then following through on it, that for me was a huge turning point. I'm sure you guys have similar kind of things that whether it was an advantage that came along or some kind of opportunity that, kind of changed your direction.
Yeah, and that's a good point. I agree with you, Rich. And the same thing happened with us. And I think most people who are, ahead there, they did same thing. When you are a junior developer, one thing I want to add here is that you need to find the work or the project or the group where you can get a lot of work. Do not find or do not work in a project where it's life is smooth sailing, where okay, it's easy work. Definitely, that's bad for you. That's not bad for company. That's bad for you as a growth because you're telling your mind that life is easy. You can be successful by going into smooth sailing and not working hard. Harder you work, especially if you are a young guy, you have a lot of time in your hands. That's when go extra mile. Okay, if you were supposed to do ABC, go and try to do D and show it to your boss, show it to people around you, and don't be afraid of even sharing with your coworkers. Like, and I see sometimes junior developers, they think that, oh, there's a competition. I'm competing with these guys. Nobody cares. Everybody in the end, they will find out who is good, who is bad, who's working hard. That's all business. Your boss needs to see that who's the person where a problem comes, who can I rely on? Those are the person they will move ahead in life.
Yeah, good
Yeah,
point.
I agree with that. So let's say you've said to somebody, go find the innovation, go find where that place is happening, right? I've had these conversations, similar conversations with people. And I know many of our viewers have had these conversations. And then a lot of times they come back and they say, but I don't have any experience with this new technology. I mean, I want to do the new technology. I want to find the people doing cool stuff and tell them, yeah, let me help you. I know how to do this, but I don't know how to do this. So how can I learn that new stuff? That is a question I hear a lot. And I imagine, is that a
Yeah,
question you hear? Yeah.
all the time. Like, yeah, how do I start, right? How do I? And again, I know it's very biggest, challenge is starting something new because you don't know, and it's a process, and there's no simple answer to that. There's no one place, okay, you go there and do it, right? You just have to figure it out. There's people go at home, they watch in their spare time. There's good thing with us, especially in software development, is there's so much out there and it's for free. It's free, everything is available free, right? You go to YouTube, you go to Udemy, you go to LinkedIn, you go to plural site. All you have to pay is, $20, $30 a month, and you can get wealth of information. We didn't have that 20 years ago, right? When we were growing up, we didn't have any of those. We had to literally sit in a room for a week to learn a new topic in technology, right? And pay like, probably our company has to pay like $20,000. So
Right.
all today's young guys, all it needs is, finding the right, time. First of all, time is important, right? They have to put time in. Then if they don't know where to learn, where to start, there's so many mentors like you guys are doing here. I'm sure if they go to anybody who's senior and ask them, hey, I want to learn new, I want to learn IoT, I want to learn machine learning, I want to learn, say AI, they will guide you. If they don't know, they will exactly tell you where to find it. It just, you gotta just go there, just talk to them. First thing you gotta do is tell yourself, I'm gonna put 1 or 2 hours a day or a week, how much time you can do on this only. And then
Mm.
you just focus on that and figure out, okay, who is the closest to me person that is knows a little bit about this. Twitter is there, right? And then try to reach out to them. And listen, sometimes people are not going to respond to you. It doesn't mean that they don't have time for it. It just simply means they just maybe, busy something else. Go to different person. So help is there. All you have to do is, all young guys have to do is they have to willing to learn, and definitely don't bring egos, right? If somebody's
Right.
trying to help you, just listen. If you don't like it, it's okay. You
Yep.
don't need to do what they're saying. Just listen, and that's it.
Yeah. And I think
Yeah.
you raise a good
Yeah.
point. There's a lot of, with the way everything has changed, how when we started up doing technology, right? I mean, even things like this, weren't around, even 3, 4, 5 years ago at this point of people online sharing, collaborating and writing code together and working through a project and a problem and seeing somebody. I think what helps is seeing somebody run through the failure side of it as well, especially when you're young, because then you don't feel like, oh, I'm the only one who doesn't get it.
Yeah, and listen, we all fail, right? Because we come from time where there was no direct plural site where you go and learn, right? So we a lot of time we try hit and trial and failed, and so we want to help other people. That's how naturally we are. Good thing with programming world is there's so many people want to help.
Yeah, and like Rich is saying, I love this new model of things. So, and we've talked about this before. I find this really interesting and as a developer, sort of entertaining and a great way to learn. Is that it used to be you go to a presentation that was scripted and it really just expected to be perfect. And we've sort of got this new model now, not always. So sometimes you want to see perfect, right? We've got this new model where developers are failing in public, not massively failing, hopefully, right? Although I
On
massively
Twitch,
failed a few times.
on Twitch.
Yeah, exactly. Uh,
Yeah.
but we're on live streams. We take chances and we do things, and there's men and women that are just ready to sort of share their experiences with other people, and that's cool. Now, um, here's a question for you: whose responsibility is it when you're like an employer, and we're talking about people that have full-time employment, right? If you're a
Yeah.
contractor, I think things are a little different, but you're working somewhere at a full-time. Who do you think's responsibility is in terms of like providing the learning opportunities? Is it the employer or the employee?
Well, I would have to say it's both, right? If I'm a good employer, if as a company, if I want to grow my company, I need to figure out how to get my employees on board as a part of the company. You cannot think that, okay, this is my company and these guys just work for me. If that's the process, chances are it'll be really difficult for that company to grow. Uh, so the company owners, business owners, they have to think, okay, how do I get my, this workforce as a part? They should feel like, even though they're not, they should feel like it's their company, right? So for that, they need to provide these opportunities. They need to provide learning, right? They need to provide free training, which almost every company is doing these days.
Mm-hmm.
But most of it falls on the individual himself or herself, because it's up to really them. Resource is not a problem, right? As I said, resources, you don't really need to rely on your employer to learn something new in today's world. So it's really up to them, and they need to go and do it. Sometimes, it's better if in company you are doing some cool project and learning, and they're already, again, some companies, if they're not doing it, you have to figure out how to convince them. But I would say it's both, responsibility is both. But look at anybody who's learning, doing their own thing, they do themselves. History tells us, right? They don't really rely on their boss or their employer to tell them what to do.
Yeah, I agree. I've often talked to people about the difference between a job and a career. And I say, if you have to own your career and take control of your career, like you were saying earlier, you got to make those opportunities for yourselves, right? You also have to put your own time in and learn on, and take ownership of that. And then a company, I feel like a company should reciprocate for that and say, wow, we see this employee is really learning a lot of stuff. Let's reward them. Let's give them even more opportunities to learn new things or something like that. But I think when an employee shows that they've got that passion, and one of the examples I've always said is like those code camps, right? And I
Yeah.
know you for code camps over the years. And when I used to lead the sponsorship stuff for Philly.net code camps, and I used to try to engage with sponsors, and people would say, is this a good place to come if we're looking to hire? And I said, where else would you want to go? A room full of people that gave up their own Saturday, not their employer's time, but they gave up their own time because they care and they want to learn stuff, and they came here on a Saturday. Those are the kind of people you want to hire, right? Now then, like you said, I think you need to reward them as well, right? It's that two-way street. I wanted to share this story with you. As you were talking, I was thinking about this story. The last time I was hiring, I had someone come in for an interview, and they were out of work, which is fine. Like they were out of work for a month or so, like that. And they were looking for jobs and stuff like that. And what they kept telling me is that they wanted to get a job like at a place like mine, because I was talking about a lot of new technology at the time, and they really wanted to get involved in. I think at the time I was talking about like some AI stuff and different things, and they said that's really what they want to do. And they don't want to work on the old stuff. And I said, well, great. So tell me, what do you know so far? And they're like, well, I haven't really learned anything because my old employer wouldn't let me do anything. And it was kind of over there at that point, because I was thinking, if you're not going to show me that you're going to own it, like, believe me, you can come on board. I'll teach you all kinds of stuff, right? Well, the sky's the limit of what we can learn. And you've been out of work for a month and you haven't learned. Now, this is obviously, I think, the extreme example, but this person was out of work and still hasn't learned anything new. You're right. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and I 100% agree with you. If a person is saying, I don't like this, I like this, I would not hire that person, because, and I've been working as a consultant for so many years. The way you learn is, it's not about what programming language, what technology you choose to learn. It's all about what problem are you solving. Problem doesn't require .NET 5.0 to solve. Okay, as long as if it's better suited and solved in Excel sheet, that's fine. That's how it is, and that's what makes you valuable to a company, because you are solving their problem. You are helping them to. You are helping business grow. That's how any business will see more value in you rather than how fancy you are, how many cool things you know.
Yeah, there's a couple of comments in chat. Jason's here again. Jason Kurtz is a friend of the show, listens a lot, and he says, he's a student, and we've heard from him in the past, and he says how much he wants to learn and get involved in the community. That was something that was really valuable to me. I've told many times the story of how I got started doing all this community stuff was because going to these user group meetings, there was no live streaming, right? But going to user group meetings, how much I learned when people stood up there and shared with me. And then at a certain point, I said, wow, it's my turn to give that back, right? But there's so much out there for people to share. And then Richard is also commenting on how he interviews. It's always good to hear feedback, right? He says he interviews the same way at his place. That I guess sounds like he and I have similar interview processes. But, I love to hear about if you guys agree with stuff, definitely comment and say, yeah, sort of like a thumbs up kind of thing, and tell us you like what we're saying. If you disagree, jump in. We like to hear different opinions. There are many opinions, all right? And there's a lot of ways to look at certain things. So while I'm taking a break to talk about that, by the way, feel free if you're new to the show, we hope you will follow us on Twitch, follow us on Mixer, subscribe on YouTube if you're watching on YouTube, and help us sort of spread the love of the show. And if we're tweeting, please help us grow the show. Give us a retweet and things like that. We have fun, and the more the merrier. We're trying to build this up, and we appreciate you guys, everybody being a part of the show and commenting. It's so much fun. We're going to keep talking about this in a minute, but I also want to take a minute and say one of the things Mahesh is working on is an online dev conference, right? It's actually an architecture conference. Can you give us 30 seconds on that?
Yeah, so as a software developers, we always go to these dev conferences. They're everywhere, in every city almost, and I don't see too many conferences focused on software architecture. And a lot of these senior developers, they always ask, hey, how do I become a software architect? How do I become a cloud architect? How do I get into enterprise architecture? So we thought, we have a lot of friends, they love to speak, and they are architects like yourself. So why don't we ask them to see, hey, would you like to just, share how these young guys can move to the next level? And everybody likes the idea, and we put together a virtual conference. It's called Software Architecture Virtual Conference. We have 450 people already signed up. I think it looks like it's going to be a successful, looks like, based on signups we're seeing. And yeah, it's right there. It's live. It's on June 5th. It's about 6 hours.
It's free,
yeah,
right?
Yeah,
it's free. Let's just be really clear about that.
That's
right?
correct. So anything, most of the community I'm involved with, they're always free. Yes, definitely free. All the events, conferences we do, and you've been involved in, Andy, with us, and I'm involved with you. All these, most of things are free. Yes.
Yeah, it's great. This seems like I was really excited that you asked me to help with this. I think this is a really cool idea because this goes along with, well, obviously the topic we're talking about today, this all fits together. But one of the things I hear from people is they say, well, I've been a developer for, let's just say 10 years. I want to become, I'm ready for my promotion to architect. Right. Well, it's a different skill set. You don't just move. It's not like you can go from junior to mid to senior to architect. Architect is a different set of skills, don't you think?
Yes, definitely. Architect is more, if I have to put in one minute, when you're building, you're building a new, let's say, new town or city, or even a new, Times Square building, you have to think of that. How are you going to put the building? How many people are going to fit in there? Is it going to survive the earthquake? How big the door should be, how big the windows should be, air, wind, air conditioner. So same thing. Software architecture is pretty much simple. It's the same way. You have to think all those things. Is my software still going to be relevant 10 years down the road? What if million people come online on the website and start hitting same time? What happens is there is enough space in my database if everybody start uploading, thousands of files. So you have to think all those things. And with this, as you see, on the screen, all these guys, they're all architects and they have built software for, years and years. They will bring all those experiences and share with all of us.
Yeah, and so this is a bit of a shameless plug because I'm involved in this as well. But I think this is really good. I think this is a cool thing. I'm always happy to do it, and it's free, and I think it's good. And I think it's really good because it really highlights that architecture is a different skill. It's certainly something people can move into, but it's got a different set of skills. Now, I want to go back to some of the questions we have here. Because Richard is asking, he says, so when you have someone that just wants to be told what to learn, asks how to learn new stuff, et cetera, right? How do you get them to change their mindset to own their career, right? And take the initiative? I have some thoughts on that, but Mahesh, why don't you feel free to jump on that. And Richard, you can kill my screen if you want.
No, I mean, you go ahead. I think it's really depend, it's hard to change people's mind, but one way or two ways I have seen something is by putting them into situations where they feel like if they don't do this, other people are going to get ahead of them. So there is a way you can put some competition, right? You can put some kind of like, hey, there's, these are the things you guys need to learn. If you don't, if next promotion comes or whatever, you got to show them that there's a reward to do for you to do this.
Yeah.
Some people are motivated intrinsically. They will do it regardless. Some you need to push them. And as you know, owner, employer, boss, whatever, we have to somehow, try to take our team with us. So you need to, there's different ways you can bring, you can bring people in to even teach them. Like there's some people just specialize in that. They'll come for 2 hours and talk to your team and basically talk about why they should be learning new things.
Yeah. First of all, I love that you mentioned intrinsic motivation because it's so key. And as a hiring practice, if you can find people that are intrinsically motivated, that is just, to me, those are some key people. Now, I would also say I've worked with people that want to be sort of like told what to learn and things like that. And I've worked with some people that are really great at that. Like you tell them what to learn and they learn it and they embrace it and they become good at it. And then, but they still need to be told like the next thing to learn. And I think, unfortunately, there's some things that are really hard to change about people. And that is just part of like a DNA, right? Those people that just want to keep learning something. Some people just kind of don't, I guess. And I will just say, if I'm being honest here, that that's hard for me to work with because, and I try to recognize that not everyone has to be so motivated, right? But it's so in contrast to my personality that I just kind of want to keep learning like the next thing. And I have to remind myself that it is okay. Those people can't always expect maybe the promotions and the moves and the growth that you're talking about, right? But those people that are just content, that's okay, right? I guess.
Yeah, you need both, right? So if you are a company, you end up having both because again, it's hard to find people who are motivated by themselves. So, but as long as you have enough resources to deal with that, that's the challenge, right? To run into that you cannot go and tell everybody what to do every day. And then we ourselves, you'll probably get frustrated as well, and that's going to affect your own deadlines and your own work and your own mindset. So you have to find a balance, really. There's no, answer is not like, it's not yes and no. There are some people really good. You tell them they'll go all the way, but that's how they are, as you said. That's their DNA. But if you think they are doing work for you, what they're supposed to do with a little bit of your headache, I guess that's how it has to be.
Yeah. What so then people sort of always say, I'm trying to think through this like sort of situation we talked about, like someone comes to you and they say, how do I get that up? And you said, well, make an opportunity for yourself. And then we talked about how you have to take some ownership and learn and things like that. But then usually the next thing is they say, well, what should I learn? What's the important stuff for me to learn? If I want to, let's say I'm pretty early in my career. Now, of course, we'd have to think of a scenario, like what are they doing now? But maybe they're doing some basic like maybe they're a back-end developer just doing some sort of C# stuff. And then they say, well, I want to do, I don't know. I'm trying to think of like what's a good scenario, but because it's always hard to say where should people go next. What's the next thing to learn?
Right. I
But
mean, I get,
yeah,
I get the question. I think it's hard to. So there's always, that where the ball is going. Somebody says where the puck is going. Again, I'm not,
yeah, where's the
Wayne
puck
Gretzky.
going? Right.
yeah.
Yeah.
So
Wayne
where the
Gretzky.
puck is going. Uh, all we have to do is keep eye on trends, right? If you read any tech news, if you read any, go to TechCrunch or go to these, CNET, and some of the we do on C Sharp Corner as well. Say future of technology, right?
Mm,
You can easily see the trend. Like today, I can easily see the trend that everybody is going to what? Voice, right? Everything is voice. Your phone is voice, your car is voice, your home is voice. Voice is becoming one of the major technologies that's growing fastest. You look at the speakers, like look at we are talking on this, audio video here. Uh, Look at the bots being built for support and customer support and all that. And then look at AI and machine learning. That's growing. So as long as you're paying attention to one of these, news websites, news, tech news channels or Twitter or watching or listening, you can easily tell where things going. Like if you watch Build, for example, if you watch Build and you are a .NET developer, you can clearly say that what Microsoft is focusing on next, and that's
yeah.
really you want to focus on. Again, if you're not really sure, you're a young guy, that what should I learn, then maybe again talk to somebody, go to user groups, ask questions in these you know online webinars or these talk shows, and you will find out, because most of these guys who talk on these, they usually talk about training topics. I'm not going to hear and talk about Java 2.0 or .NET 2.0, right? So but again, voice is, if I have to answer somebody today what they should be focusing on next, is voice, AI, machine learning, data science, data analytics is
Hmm.
growing big time. Cloud is definitely going to grow, continue to grow. So anything and everything is going to cloud, right? And then mobile is growing big time. AR VR is going to be a big next thing. Next big thing is going to be AR VR, because based on what we are going through this COVID, looks like nobody, I don't want to go to NBA and sit with the 80,000 more people there. I would rather put my glasses on and pretend like I'm sitting there.
You were one of the first people I know that were working with HoloLens, right? So you're making me think. I remember I think it was at Tech Bash one year. Did you have a HoloLens with you
Yes,
at that? So you
I
you know what
did.
you're talking about with some of this AR VR stuff, and maybe you're right. Maybe that's the future of sports. Um, Rich, what do you think? I mean, do you have any thoughts? Like, what are you telling people to focus these days?
Focus on something that
Tough.
interests you. It's not really a technology. I mean, you could look at it from a technology perspective, but everybody's got something that they're interested in, right? Something that drives them. Maybe it's they want to learn Blazor, they want to learn something from the .NET stack of things. But quite honestly, that that's just like you said, Mahesh. That's just the technology. Are you interested in applying that to something like AR, VR, or Kinects and those kind of cameras, or IoT devices and machine learning or so? So I pick something you're interested in, and then
Mm.
there's usually a technology around that, and that's often, that's the best ways to learn and pick something else, because once you have that, then you can probably tangentially go across to something else you might want to have an interest in, or that might be a need based on the interest you've kind of pulled together. Yeah, COBOL's back.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
Kev's saying, and I don't know, not to be, totally argumentative or something, but Kev makes a good point. Mahesh, you said, follow like what's on Build and you can see the topics. And he's saying, yeah, but that's not always where the jobs are, right? Like if you want to get a job, you can't always be working on the leading, the new future stuff, right? So one of the things that are going to be getting, jobs for people. He talks about COBOL and WinForms, and it's true. You could get plenty of work doing that. Um, so, I was thinking about like web frameworks, right? A lot of times I tell people that if they're like a C# developer, now is a good time to work on JavaScript kind of stuff and learn front end. And there's a lot of platforms there. Do you have any thoughts on the wars between the front end platforms?
Yeah, I mean, you said Kev that's a good point. If
Kevin
I'm looking
Griffin, by
for
the
it,
way, I'm
yeah.
talking about. Yeah,
Oh yeah,
yeah,
yeah, definitely.
yeah.
Kev is
You know
it's a good point.
Kevin.
Yeah, I know Kevin. Yeah. Hey Kevin, nice to see you there. Yeah, listen, if you don't have a job and your goal is to get the job or get next job, then you want to learn what's jobs are out there and easy to find is if you go to LinkedIn, you go to those job boards like Indeed, you can clearly say what are the most demanding jobs. You can also search, hey, what's the most paying jobs, and you can look at the city wise, right? I can look at the most popular jobs, programming jobs or technology jobs in California. You can easily find those. That's one way to find out that what employers are looking for. Uh, but yeah, I agree. Jobs versus passion, there's two different things, right? Passion is what just Rich said, is if you find something doing and get a job, make money, and that's your passion, that's the best, mix out there. You will never be bored with that.
Yeah. And
Yeah, that's
if you're looking for a language, the language I'm currently telling people is learn Python, because it doesn't matter whether you're building websites or you're doing data analytics or you've got that skill or that code or that language seems to cross all of those various paths from engineering to machine learning to just regular dev stuff. But if I had to pick one.
Yeah, Python is number one. It's growing. It has passed. I was looking at the stats. Python has passed Java in number of users using it. Java has been there for forever.
Python is past Java?
Yeah, I saw that stats. Python is number one language
Wow.
used today among especially students and young developers are all over it.
Wow. Yeah, and I
Yeah.
think there's going to be a lot of demand for Python. I think that's pretty good advice. I do think that that's the thing. I always tell people when they just want to get started, if they've never done anything and they want to come into this, which I think is a different conversation, right?
Yeah.
That I always think JavaScript is a good place to start. Even though I didn't start there, I started with, I think a language like C# and those things, but everybody wants to write like web and stuff like that. So you say, just do some JavaScript, or I
Well,
guess TypeScript,
Well, based on jobs, I work with a lot of recruiters. I work with, if you look at the jobs, um, Angular and React are the most popular right now in demand. Companies like Comcast, companies I'm working with clients, everybody's doing Angular and React. That's pretty popular out there. Obviously, JavaScript is the base for everything. Um, I don't see a lot of jobs, frankly speaking, in like Blazor. Even it's new. I don't see company building real products in Blazor yet. At least
I
where what I'm working with. Yeah.
yeah, I agree. And, I don't want to get Rich fired or anything like that. But I think Blazor's like, it's really cool. And I
Yeah.
think if it catches on, it could really kick butt.
Yeah.
In my own organization, I've told people, we're watching Blazor, right? I want to really see like where this goes and does it dig in and does it bite? And we could do some experiments with Blazor. But Blazor's really cool. But right, if you're learning Blazor today, you're probably not going to get your first job as a Blazor developer, because it's like so cutting edge. They're going to want someone with experience and things like that. There's other places to go. Richard says, his C# developers want to move to Blazor. Yeah, I'm hearing it as well. That people want to use that. Yeah, and I too wasted, but I would say spent a lot of time on Silverlight, and so we feel like we've gotten burned a little bit. And so sometimes we want to see like what's going to stick a little bit before we commit to it. I think there are
Well, that's
are.
and that's not
It's
and
good.
that's
It's really good. It's really cool.
yeah. I mean, Blazor itself is I love the tech and I love the cool things you can build with it. But I think that's the same with any framework technology. How long ago were we all doing Rails, right? And is anybody doing a Rails project inside their organization? But those things are fleeting, and not that there's anything wrong with Rails. Rails, it had a I don't know, I forget how many dozen or 15 years ago where it was like, hey, that's what everybody should be building. Let's try it out. And I think it's not just It's not just a company or technology, right? It's those things can be cyclical, and I think you're right. You're looking around to see what makes sense and what feels like okay. There's some community behind it, right? There's some momentum where we can kind of where we can really get behind this and build a project on it, and not feel that it could get abandoned when this person who was all in favor of it moves on or leaves the company.
Yeah, no, I'm definitely never going to argue against Blazor, in the long run. But I'm just saying it's hard to make these decisions, and it's interesting because this is something that maybe could come up in the architecture talks that we're going to have. But as an architect, you often have to decide like when are we going to take that chance, or make that move to another technology, and that's out of scope for this conversation. But that's the types of things architects need to figure out. Is like, well, when are we going to change, right? And when are we going to do new things? And that sort of fits into that category. So, we were talking a little bit about things that people could learn, right? And if you're trying to maybe move out to something more innovative, what you maybe would learn. What if you're just a mid-level C# developer? I'm just thinking like, where do we tell people, like they say, well, I really want to be a better C# developer. Now I feel like I could go back to a comment. I feel like I got to throw one out. I think it was also Richard Wasaki in the comments way back a while ago who said, read the book Clean Code, which is probably a good idea. Clean Coder, right? And so maybe that's part of the advice, right? But where do we want to tell people to go when they want to go, from like sort of mid to senior? Like they're not looking to totally change to new technology and go do AR, VR. They just want to keep going. Like what kind of skills do they need to have to move up to like senior? Maybe
Yeah, I think what I notice, and I'm working with web projects, apps, web APIs, cloud hosted, everything. One thing I find is that developers, especially, let's talk about front end developers, they don't invest enough in learning the performance, learning the quality of the code. As you said, there was a comment. I 100% agree with that. Um, for example, if we are building websites, say C Sharp Corner, we know there's going to be millions of developers visiting this every month. If there's a little piece of code and bad guy writes, it's going to mess up, it's going to crash everything. So performance obviously is a big deal if you ask me to learn. If you are 5+ years experience developer, you have not paid attention to minor details like building awesome UI. We often underestimate the UI. UI is like a face of a person, right? If I see somebody, first thing I see their face. And as a developer, we don't pay too much attention to that. You got to start paying, attention to minor details, and also and that includes like user experience. So there's a lot more to learn just doing what they're already doing and get better at it. Before, I would say the next step would be to learn, design principles, architectures, and then also try to use tools like how can I make this product better? Why do I have to write so much code manually? Can I just use some existing libraries, right? Can I use like look at best practices. If you are in, say, Microsoft .NET stack, right? Your .NET stack. Look at the best practices, design best practices. So those are something I would recommend to read, because everybody should know those. One of the biggest challenges with JavaScript developers I find is that they just start writing code and back and forth. It's just so much code. Nobody knows what's doing what, and that just frustrates me. So that's why I like, TypeScript. Why I like TypeScript? Why, because it's very structured. It's organized. It's, it has a, if I want to review something, I can go through and so I would, focus on those other little things that will make you better developer.
I like that. I think that's really sound advice, is to say that it's not always about learning, some additional technology or additional frameworks or things like that, but master your craft with the tools you're already using, right? Go back and tweak and learn those best practices and look at those, the way that other people are saying to try to do things, right? And really master your craft. And that's the stuff we look for in a senior developer, I think, right? I think that's really good.
Yep.
Yeah.
Rich, were you trying to jump in?
I
Go
just
ahead, saying something.
just to I guess to a follow up to that, from aside from once you like have that book language, or as you're developing that book language or book smarts around it, what about participating outside of work in like an open source project, or doing something that is part of something that doesn't necessarily say, well, I get paid for this. This is something that I want to learn and figure out on my own, or work with a community to participate on a project that might be out there.
That's good advice, I think.
Yep.
Especially when, how many times do people come to you and say, well, I'd like to do something, but I don't have an idea. Like, I don't know what kind of software to write at home. Like, I don't know. And what you just said is, well, that nowadays, just go find an open source project and contribute.
Yeah. And making it very easy, like what they're looking for, and like, hey, even tagging the issues and saying, well, this is a really good place for a new person to jump in and kind of try this out, or see if they can fix this.
That's great. So there's another question here about, Richard says, one of the great ways to grow your career is to teach. And I agree with that. And so he's asking, what are good ways for developers to teach? Like, what are some ways? And he throws out a couple things here. Even pairing up with people is a good way to teach. Doing presentations, live coding, but I don't know, what other ways do we have ideas of ways people could teach that he hasn't mentioned there? Pair programming, presentations, and live coding.
Yeah, I mean, they all good, right? You can create your own video and post on YouTube or anywhere. That's basically your teaching, even though you don't feel like one-on-one, but you may be teaching somebody for 10 years. I wrote code in .NET 1.0, which probably it still works, on message box, and people still use that code. So teaching, you have to ask how you like to teach. Everybody like different. I like writing, so that's good for me. Maybe you like to talk to people, right? So all the above, like talk shows, conferences, and writing, all that thing is basically, or even in person, you can even say, hey, I like to teach I'm working with a lot of community colleges. From time to time, I go for a few days and say, hey, can I come here and talk to you guys on the startups? So there's different ways to do that. There's, teaching is not a problem. It's just finding what kind of passion you have, right? If you like to speak, then you just find that way. If you like to be on, talk show, then go to this dev talk show. I'm sure we can use some guests here. And if you like to,
good one. Go to Dev Talks. Oh God, I just lost my own train of thought there. But I was thinking, a lot of times mentoring is a good way to teach people, right?
yep.
A lot of times people are looking for mentor, and I've heard people say, hey, would you do some one-on-one mentoring? And a lot of times, you might work in an office where there's people that are more junior than you, right? And that doesn't even have to mean in title, but maybe something that they don't know, right? And so maybe you can help, right? You don't have to be an expert on everything to teach, right? You just have to, want to share and have some information and want to share it. We're getting kind of close on time. We're kind of winding things up. I was thinking though, sort of off topic a little bit here, and I don't know if you could talk about this, but you mentioned a few times about the site C# Corner. What's the technology stack there? Is that something that you share publicly, or is this a secret sauce or something like that?
No, it's .NET. It's ASP.NET. We are trying to decide should we go Blazor route or not, which I prefer Blazor, obviously, personally. And my developers are they want to move to Blazor. It's just there are certain things right now we cannot do in Blazor, which or if we do, it's going to take a lot more time to build this, because this is a big platform. This is huge. We have so many features here. If unknown, trust me, if you log in as an admin, you'll go nuts. So.
Oh God, I can only imagine. I've got the site up here on my screen. Is this when you say it's ASP.NET? Is it like Razor, or do you use another framework on top for the UI?
It's 4.0, ASP.NET Web Forms 4.0 with
Oh, it's
a lot
web
of web
web
forms,
forms.
and it's a lot of Java. There's CSS, JavaScript. We don't do any jQuery. We used to have jQuery, but now it has some parts are done um, in more just HTML, CSS. Uh,
Yeah, sure.
yeah, it depends, right? But it's all web forms still. It's because
You must have a big code base here. I mean, it's, the site's been around. It's not easy to just tear it down and do it all over again, right?
correct. That's why. And we problem is that if once we start doing this, we have to redo the whole thing from scratch.
We all know,
Uh,
as decision makers, right? We know how hard those decisions are to make in our own
uh,
organizations, and um, it's it's complicated. I'm just looking at what is Jason saying in chat. I've been told that you can take a copycat app tutorial and create new features for it to show what you can do. You learn the process. Yeah, that's a seems like a good way to do it. Create new features for things. Take a copy of an app, right?
yeah,
And just work on it, right? That's a cool idea.
yeah. If you
There's a
don't know
lot of
what
ways.
project to build, yeah, definitely. Yeah.
That's pretty cool. So we mentioned earlier the
Oh, back. Let me answer more. Go back to C sharp
yeah.
core. So,
Oh
um,
yeah.
this is all web forms. We are running on two servers. Both are hosted with Rackspace, and backend is SQL Server 2019. We update database, migrate to new ones, even though some of our store proc still be old ones. Database tables we old. It's a community, right? So we don't have so much resources behind this. Uh,
Right. This is
yeah,
something you've been providing. It's just out here for free, and
yeah,
so it's like many other things, right? We all understand what it takes to rebuild software and things like that, and it's great that it's been running. What's amazing is that such a big popular site can run on a couple servers, right?
yeah.
And you know, not everything has to be latest and greatest, although we talk about that here on the show. A lot of the topics we talked about today were how to learn new things, but there's plenty of other stuff, where older software can still run and be awesome here. What's Richard looking for? Anyone have experience with microsites within a larger website? Um, I think I did something like that a long time ago. Are you talking about, Richard, like hosting a site within a site, so sort of building a new section, um, and sort of like laying some newer technology into an older site, maybe something like that. I'm not sure if that's what he means, but some technologies allow for that, and some don't. Rich, what do you got? You got any other, there's a whole bunch of stuff we could talk about here. Did you want to throw anything in? I don't want to make sure I'm not cutting you off too much.
Oh no, I jump in when I got some.
I just want to make sure.
No, but I do appreciate
You know
that.
what's
That's
Yeah, you know what's cool? One other thing I guess we could talk about here is that when I had tweeted this, or I don't know if it was on tweeting or when I put it out on LinkedIn, um, and I guess someone from one of your teams, Mahesh, retweeted it or something like that, and threw the hashtag growth mindset on there, which I
Yeah.
thought was a pretty cool thing. Is that, I don't know if you had personally done that or someone else had done that, but I don't know how familiar we are. That's a cool topic to talk about, growth mindset.
Yeah, that's probably me. I would probably use that hashtag.
Can
That's
you tell
my,
people what that is a little bit?
yeah. So, you know, if I tell my background story where I come from, people will be thinking like seriously. So I came from the poorest place in India to I have lived in richest area in New York, Times Square, right? So I've seen this world from, wherever, when I was growing up, uh, if I tell you that my first shoes were probably in 12th grade. Before that, I have never worn shoes in my life. Uh,
Wow.
when I was growing up high school, we had no electricity. Okay, so whenever so when you look at my own personal experience and history and going from we don't know. I didn't know how to speak English until I came to US. Even though I learned how to write in my master's degree when I was learning computers, uh,
Wow.
I did master's degree in computers, but guess what? We will get 1 hour computer each week. and that was the one, so how much can you learn in that? So point I'm making is that but if you want to grow, you have to, you know, constantly challenging yourself and thinking about like what are you doing today that's making you better than you were yesterday. uh, it's basically you don't compete with anybody else. If you want to grow in life, you have to compete with yourself, right? But the day you start thinking that, oh, I know everything, I'm better than everybody else, I don't need to learn, that's when your growth stops. And I'm a big believer and big promoter of this, that you can always get better. And if people, I'll tell you a story. C Sharp Corner, when I launched it, in the beginning, my English was so bad. I'm writing. Obviously, I'm just sharing. I just put anything out there. I didn't even realize people are going to read it from different countries, right? So people
Right.
are commenting that, oh, you're so bad, your English is so bad, and all that. Uh, and I still have those comments, right? I didn't delete them. Then I think first few days I got, I wasn't happy, I was upset, but then I realized that that's not going to help me if I start crying about it and complaining about it. How I need to get better at it, and that's what really made me better. That if somebody comes and tells you how great you are, that's not really helping you in your growth. You want to hear from people who criticize you, who tells you, hey, this is what you should do. And sometimes you won't like people, you will disagree, but there's no need for you to get mad or get pissed. If somebody's giving you feedback, unless they are jealous of you, chances are they are really looking for you. They are basically your well wishers. Like your parents will tell you what's wrong with you, neighbors will never tell you because he doesn't care. It's that simple, right? So
Hmm.
if we want to have a growth mindset, we need to absorb and listen and basically, analyze those. Like, okay, if these three comments came to my articles or to me personally, how can I improve and get better at that? And we can have whole discussion around this. But that's what I believe and that's what I preach and that's why I practice myself. I'm never satisfied with me. I'm always learning. I'm like, I maybe get pissed one tonight and I'll be working all night learning something.
I've known you for a long time, and I've never known your full background story like that. And it really sort of, it helps me like see the whole picture of you because you've always been such a motivated, positive person, always trying new things. I mean, you've always been the sort of deal maker, starting startups and doing things. But that's because you embrace this making opportunities and growing, and it's paid off for you, right? And Jason says his professor talks about failing forward, which is a good thing. I heard once a quote that was saying something like, "There's no successes and failures, right? You're either succeeding or you're learning, or something like
Yep.
that." And now even succeeding is learning, right? But the whole point is there's no failure, right?
Nope.
Failure is just getting better at something. My wife's an
Fail.
elementary school guidance teacher,
Yeah.
and she it's really interesting because I've been helping with all this COVID-19 stuff. We're all home. I've been helping her with some of her lessons. I help her make videos so she can share with the kids because I have a little, I got the cameras and the mics and stuff like that. And one of the lessons this year that I helped her with is growth mindset. And I've heard that phrase for a while. I've heard her use that for a while, and I've been hearing more and more about it. I think it's really interesting and really cool that they start teaching things like this concept of growth mindset to elementary school students, right? Plant that seed when they're young. Get them to understand this value of this growth mindset. I think is really cool, right? That we if we want to learn new things, we can learn new things. If we want to grow, we can grow. We just have to sort of do it, right? We just have to try, you know?
Yeah, yeah, and then you build practices around it, and then companies are doing different things with it, and how they can, yeah. But this is a big thing in some. If you look at some of the YouTubers, they are big speakers. All they do is talk about this topic, and it's very interesting. And even my company name, Mindcracker, I always am personally fascinated about mind, how it works, brain, how it works, why we do what we do, why we don't like, so this kind of helps me grow into that direction a lot more. uh, that, why don't we like things when people say all those things? But back to the failure part, I think if you ask me in one line, what is failure? Not trying is failure.
Oh,
That's
wow.
failure. Okay. If you're just sitting, you may be whatever, and you're just thinking you are successful, but you're not trying. That's failure to me. You look at Abraham Lincoln. You look at any successful people, even Steve Jobs. They all failed big time, right? Look at Michael Jordan, right? History teaches us that people who failed multiple times, but as long as they keep going back and they get more aggressive again, go more passionate, they are the one who became really successful.
Yep. And I think that's it.
Yeah.
Don't be afraid to fail, right? Failure is going to happen. We've
Yep.
all stumbled and done those things. As long as as long as you learn from it, as Andy said, it's not it's not a true failure. You're always moving the ball forward.
Yeah, and this is a good place to wrap it up. I think we, on this just this, great point about learning and trying and all that kind of stuff. This is a really fun show, Mahesh. We're so happy that you came on today. And Rich, do we have I don't recall if we have something. I mean, we have a show next Wednesday, but I don't recall if we have a topic or a guest lined up yet or in the books. We had some ideas, but I don't know if that was definite. Is that?
We kicked around a number of ideas. We didn't get anything definite yet, but yeah, we're definitely going to do a show next week. We're doing. We have. I think we got Philly.net is doing their a lab that night beforehand, and we'll roll right into that like we did last week. So.
Okay. So, again, as I said earlier, we appreciate everyone being here. Feel free to, like and subscribe and do all those cool things if you can. We appreciate that, you help show that you like our like what we're doing. Shameless plug again, by the way, Swami streams Wednesdays at noon on Mixer, Twitch, YouTube /Swami streams. You can find me doing my thing. Writing some code and having some fun. I call it coding fun and a little bit of chaos. And usually there's some kind of chaos, something's not going right, but that's how we learn, right? We learn from the chaos. And thanks to Kevin for being here. Kevin says, thanks, Mahesh. Thank you, Kevin. Thank you, Jason. And Richard. And, I'm trying to think of other people that have throw comments out here, but we love when people just participate and make this show their own show, right? And it's about community that we're all trying to do. Mahesh, any last plugs? What's the date of our conference?
Hey, it's June 5th. If I'm sure a lot of you guys are already architect level, but this is somebody who is not an architect or want to learn more about other parts of architecture. We're going to talk about difference between app architecture, cloud architect and enterprise architect and app architect, and how they're different roles. That'll be some cool things to talk about, how you can see a big picture, because as a software architect, most of us senior guys are, we don't realize what enterprise architect really do. And working with large corporations, when it's just different world, so we're going to put all those topics there. Again, it's free, join in. You don't have to be all there 6 hours. It'll be fun, whatever session you can join. If you can't join, we'll have those recordings available. So yeah. And
another good thing, by the way, is tell your friends, right? You work with coworkers that you might be an architect, and your coworkers are always asking us questions about how to do that. Share it with them. Say, watch this thing, and we'll looking forward to that. So, Rich, any last words?
No, Mahesh, thanks for coming on. It was a great conversation. Lots of good. Anytime you have people chiming in the chat, we know you're talking about something that's right up their alley. So appreciate you coming on, and looking forward to seeing your conference next week.
All right, thanks for having me, guys. That was fun.
Rich, cool. One last thing. I did notice the cool new wipes transitions that you're using. I saw like a really cool logo transition.
I do. Yeah, I have.
Pretty slick.
Yeah, it was something I had a chance to play around with. So you'll see that as we head to the ending credits. So we'll save it for one more.
Thank you, everybody. See you soon.
Thank you, guys. Bye.
Oh, now you caught me off guard. I didn't get. Wait.
I love it. Live show, live stream.
That's it. All right, ready? You want to do it again? One more time.